The Imperial vessel gleamed against the backdrop of stars as Ambassador Kim Tae-ho adjusted his tie one final time. His hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the weight of responsibility. He represented not just South Korea, but all of Earth in this historic first contact with the Galactic Empire. The shuttle bay doors opened with a soft hiss. Kim straightened his shoulders and nodded to his aide, Park Chun-ho, a young diplomat with sharp eyes and a sharper mind. "Remember," Kim said quietly, "observe everything. Trust nothing until proven." The Imperial welcoming party waited in perfect formation. Tall, humanoid beings with pale blue skin and eyes that seemed to shift color in the light. Their leader stepped forward, arms spread in what cultural briefings had identified as a gesture of welcome. "Ambassador Kim," the Imperial diplomat said in perfect, unaccented English, "I am High Counselor Ro. Welcome to the heart of the Galactic Empire. His Eternal Majesty awaits your presence." Kim and Juno followed their hosts through corridors of impossible architecture, ceilings that seemed to float without support, walls that subtly changed color as they passed, and technology so seamlessly integrated it appeared magical. At the diplomatic reception, Kim delivered Earth's message of peaceful cooperation. The Emperor, a being of imposing height with ornate metallic implants framing his face, nodded with apparent interest. Kim noted how the assembled court mimicked their ruler's gestures precisely. Later, at the formal dinner, Kim noticed something odd. The Imperial delegates kept exchanging subtle hand movements when they thought the Earth delegation wasn't looking. A finger tap here, a wrist rotation there. "Do you see that?" Kim whispered to Chun-ho as they were led to their quarters afterward. Chun-ho nodded slightly. "Since we arrived, it's too consistent to be casual." In their assigned chambers, luxurious by any standard, with views of the spectacular ringed planet below, Kim activated the counter-surveillance measures hidden in his diplomatic credentials. "I don't trust these accommodations," he said. "Standard procedure." The small device projected a field that scrambled most known listening technologies. Earth's scientists had developed it based on theoretical principles, having no actual alien technology to test against. Kim could only hope it worked. "Those hand signals," Kim said. "They're too precise, too patterned." "A secondary communication system," Chun-ho suggested. "Possibly. The question is, why use it around us? Unless they're saying things they don't want us to understand," Chun-ho finished. Kim couldn't sleep. The Imperial representatives had been perfectly cordial, offering technological exchange, medical advancements, and cultural sharing. Yet something felt wrong. A coldness behind their smiles, a calculation in their eyes. "I need to check something," Kim told Chun-ho. "The portable scanner might pick up transmissions we can't detect naturally." While Chun-ho kept watch, Kim slipped the small device from its hidden compartment in his luggage. Earth's best technology, designed to detect and analyze unfamiliar communication spectrums. The device immediately began picking up signals, dense packets of data flowing through the walls themselves. "They're broadcasting something," Kim whispered. "Constantly." Through the night, they captured and analyzed what they could. The translator program struggled but gradually began decoding fragments. By morning, Kim's face had gone pale. "We need to warn Earth," he said, showing Chun-ho the translation. "This isn't a diplomatic mission. It's reconnaissance." The decoded fragments painted a clear picture. Earth was being assessed for conquest. The Empire considered humans a potentially disruptive species that needed to be managed before they developed further space travel capabilities. Most concerning was a repeated reference to something called silencers, a light Imperial operatives being dispatched to remove decision-making nodes on Earth. "They're planning to assassinate our leaders," Chun-ho said, his voice tight, "while we're here being distracted by false diplomacy." Kim activated his emergency transmitter, a device disguised as an ordinary pen. It could send a compressed data burst directly to Earth's listening stations, bypassing the usual diplomatic channels. "We need to get this information back, and then find a way off the station," Kim said as he connected the scanner to the transmitter. But before he could finish the transmission, the door to their quarters slid open. 6 Imperial guards stood in the corridor, weapons drawn. Behind them stood High Counselor Rowe, his formerly friendly expression replaced by cold efficiency. "Our systems detected unauthorized scanning activities," Rowe said. "Most disappointing, Ambassador." Kim quickly pressed the transmit button, sending what data he could before the guards rushed in. Chunho attempted to block them, but a quick strike from an energy baton left him unconscious on the floor. "Your primitive technology is easily detected," Rowe said as the guards secured Kim. "Though I admit, your species shows more initiative than expected." The guards dragged Kim through the corridors, past startled Imperial citizens. No longer treated as an honored guest, he was now clearly a prisoner. They brought him to a small chamber where a tall figure waited, the Emperor's chief advisor, whose name Kim had never learned. The advisor's implants glowed with a pulsing light as he studied Kim with obvious disdain. "Your species had potential," the advisor said. "With proper guidance, humans might have earned a place of service within the Empire. Now, your resistance necessitates a more direct approach." Kim struggled against his captors. "Earth won't fall easily." The advisor's mouth curved into what might have been a smile on a human face. The conquest of primitive worlds rarely presents difficulty, particularly when leadership structures are compromised. He leaned closer to Kim, the light from his implants casting strange shadows. "The silencers have already departed for your world. Your leaders will be eliminated before they even know we exist." A cold dread filled Kim's stomach. The silencers, whatever they were already on their way. As the guards dragged him toward the detention area, Kim saw his chance. One guard's grip loosened as they turned a corner. With a desperate lunge, Kim broke free long enough to reach the emergency transmitter still hidden in his jacket. He managed to activate it and speak 3 quick phrases before a guard's baton struck his hand, shattering the device. "Earth. Betrayed. Assassins coming. They call them silencers." The transmission was incomplete, fragmented, but it was something. As unconsciousness claimed him, Kim could only hope it would be enough to warn his world of what was coming. On Earth, at a listening station buried deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, a technician's computer chimed with an incoming priority signal. The message was broken, degraded, but clear enough to sound the first alarm of humanity's greatest threat. The United Nations Security Council meeting began like any other. The large chamber buzzed with quiet conversations as diplomats checked their notes, and aides whispered last-minute briefings. Security personnel stood at their posts, scanning the room with practiced eyes that saw nothing unusual. Secretary General Lee Ju-won approached the podium with a stack of papers. The distinguished Korean diplomat adjusted his glasses as he prepared to address the urgent session on the troubling message received from Ambassador Kim. "Distinguished representatives," Lee began, his voice steady and authoritative. 3 days ago, we received a partial transmission from our diplomatic mission to the Galactic Empire. The message was fragmented but contained a clear warning about entities called silencers being sent to Earth. The delegates murmured among themselves. Some looked concerned, others skeptical. "While we cannot verify all details," Lee continued, "the emergency nature of the transmission suggests." Lee stopped mid-sentence. His eyes widened slightly. The diplomats watched in confusion as he stood perfectly still for several seconds. Then, without a word, he collapsed. Chaos erupted. Security personnel rushed to the podium as delegates rose from their seats in alarm. "Medical emergency," someone shouted. "Get a doctor." But the doctor who reached Lee first stepped back immediately, his face pale. "He's dead," he announced. "Some kind of wound to his spine." In the confusion, no one noticed the slight shimmer of movement near the emergency exit, like heat rising from pavement on a summer day. At almost the exact same moment, 6,900 miles away in Seoul, Defense Minister Kang Hyun-woo was working late in his office. His security detail stood guard outside as he reviewed classified documents regarding the strange message from Ambassador Kim. The minister looked up from his desk, sensing something unusual. The air in the corner of his office seemed to ripple slightly. "Who's there?" he demanded, reaching for his security alarm. His fingers never made it. Something impossibly sharp sliced through his throat with surgical precision. The guards outside heard the heavy thud of a body falling. When they burst into the room, the minister lay dead on the floor, blood pooling beneath him. The windows remained sealed. The room was empty. In Washington, D.C., General Han Min-soo exited the Pentagon surrounded by 4 armed guards. As the head of Joint Space Operations, he had been working nonstop since the troubling transmission from Ambassador Kim. They had nearly reached the general's armored car when one of the guards noticed something odd on the security camera feed in his tactical glasses. "Sir, there's some kind of visual anomaly 3 meters to your right," the guard said, raising his weapon. The general turned his head. "I don't see any." The guards opened fire at an empty space as their general crumpled to the ground, a perfect wound through his heart. Their bullets hit nothing but air, seemingly passing through an invisible target without effect. By morning, the pattern was unmistakable. 8 world leaders, all involved in space defense or first contact protocols, had been assassinated within a 6-hour period. No assassins were captured. No weapons were recovered. In the emergency bunker beneath the Blue House in Seoul, President Yoon Myung-ji watched the security footage from the UN attack for the 20th time. Advanced analysis had finally revealed something, a barely perceptible humanoid shape moving with unnatural fluidity. "Play it again," she ordered. "Enhance Section 4. The technical analyst nodded and adjusted the settings. This time, as the footage played, a flash of reflection appeared, 2 eyes catching the light like a cat's. "There," the president said, pointing. "That's our killer." Colonel Choi Do-yeon, head of South Korea's Special Forces, shook his head. "Madam President, we've analyzed all available footage. These attackers move faster than Olympic athletes, but with perfect precision. They have some kind of personal shields that deflect bullets. Most concerning, they can make themselves nearly invisible." The message from Ambassador Kim called them silencers, President Yoon said. "An appropriate name," Choi replied grimly. Tokyo security forces cornered one in the Prime Minister's residence. They fired over 200 rounds. Not one connected. The being simply walked through the gunfire and disappeared. The emergency phone rang. The president's secretary answered, then held it out with a shaking hand. "Madam President, we just received word. The Chinese president and the Russian defense minister have both been assassinated. 10 minutes apart." The room fell silent. These assassinations were no longer just attacks. They were a systematic elimination of Earth's leadership. "They're taking out our command structure," Colonel Choi said. "Classic first move before invasion." President Yoon stared at the frozen image on the screen, the barely visible killer with reflective eyes. She had watched Ambassador Kim's fragmented warning dozens of times. Earth, betrayed. Assassins coming. They call them silencers. "Conventional weapons are useless," Colonel Choi continued, his voice tight with controlled frustration. "These silencers, we can't stop them with anything we have." The president was silent for a long moment. Then she opened a small case on her desk, revealing a special phone. Red, with no markings or numbers. She pressed the only button on it. After 3 rings, someone answered. "This is Yoon," she said. "Authorization code Sierra Tango 749. She listened to the response, then continued, "Activate Operation Shadow Walker. Now." The person on the other end seemed to hesitate. "This is not a drill," President Yoon added, her voice firm. "Earth is under attack by enemies beyond our technological capacity to counter. Conventional forces have proven ineffective. Deploy the asset immediately." She hung up and turned to her stunned staff. "What is Operation Shadow Walker?" Colonel Choi asked. The president looked at the security footage once more, at the ghostly figure that killed with perfect efficiency. "Something I hoped we would never need," she replied. "A contingency for when technology fails us." She turned to face her military commander. "Colonel, these silencers have advanced beyond us in technology. But there are older ways of fighting, ways they might not understand or expect." Outside the bunker, sirens wailed across Seoul as another government building went into lockdown. The silencers were continuing their deadly work, but for the first time since the attacks began, President Yoon felt a small flicker of hope. Somewhere in the mountains of Jeju Island, a highly specialized communication system was activating, reaching out to the one person who might stand a chance against the perfect assassins from the stars. Deep in the mountains of Jeju Island, morning mist clung to ancient cedar trees. The only sounds were birds calling and the soft swish of a blade cutting through air. Lee Jae-hyun moved through sword forms that had remained unchanged for centuries, his body flowing from one position to the next like water. At 52 years old, Jae-hyun's body showed none of the decline most men his age experienced. His movements were precise, controlled, and deadly. Not a single motion was wasted as he practiced techniques passed down through 27 generations of his family. The small compound where he lived and trained was hidden from satellite imaging by the dense forest canopy. Few people knew of its existence, and even fewer had ever visited. Jae-hyun preferred it that way. The soft beep of the secure communication terminal interrupted his practice. He lowered his sword and walked barefoot across the polished wooden floor. The terminal only activated for one reason: a Level 1 national emergency. The screen flickered to life, showing the face of Director Ba Songman, head of South Korea's most secretive defense program. Deep lines creased the director's face, and his eyes showed he hadn't slept in days. "Master Lee," Ba said, skipping any greeting. "Operation Shadow Walker has been activated by presidential order." Jae-hyun's expression remained neutral, but his grip tightened slightly on his sword. Shadow Walker was the contingency plan that was never supposed to be needed. "I will prepare," Jae-hyun replied simply. "Brief me." Director Ba nodded and began transmitting files. "Earth is under attack. 8 world leaders assassinated in the first night alone. 7 more since then. The attackers have technology far beyond our capabilities." Images appeared on the screen: blurry security footage, crime scene photos, and analytical reports. Jae-hyun studied them carefully. "The situation is critical," Director Ba explained, showing him enhanced footage of the attacks. "They move like ghosts, kill like demons." Jae-hyun nodded once. "So do I." He wasn't boasting, merely stating a fact. While pop culture portrayed ninjas as black-clad assassins with magical powers, the reality was both more mundane and more impressive. Jae-hyun's ancestors were intelligence gatherers, saboteurs, and improvisers who operated in the shadows. Their strength came from patience, observation, and exploiting weaknesses others didn't see. "What do we know about the attackers?" Jae-hyun asked. "They call themselves silencers, part of something called the Galactic Empire. They have personal shield technology that deflects bullets, some form of cloaking that makes them nearly invisible, and weapons that can cut through anything." Jae-hyun watched the footage again, the barely visible shimmer of a silencer slipping through security at the UN. Another footage showed bullets seeming to stop in midair before falling harmlessly to the ground. "Has conventional military had any success?" "None," Ba admitted. "Special forces teams in 5 countries have engaged and failed. The Chinese deployed an experimental EMP weapon that disrupted the cloaking briefly, but the silencer still eliminated 30 soldiers before disappearing." Jae-hyun studied the footage more carefully now. While others saw only terrifying, unstoppable killers, he saw something different: patterns, habits, predictability. "Their technology makes them predictable," Jae-hyun observed, studying the silencer's movements. "They rely on patterns, and anything with a pattern can be broken." "What do you mean?" Ba asked. "Watch here." Jae-hyun pointed to one sequence: Before attacking, the shield frequency changes. See the slight color shift. And here, the cloaking field creates a 3-second vulnerability when they move faster than walking speed. They're powerful, yes, but they rely entirely on their technology. Jae-hyun stood and walked to a wooden cabinet in the corner of the room. From it, he removed a small case. "I'll need transport to each location where a silencer has been detected," he said, "and access to all available footage." Director Ba looked doubtful. "Even if you can see weaknesses we can't, how can you fight them? Their shields stop bullets." Jae-hyun opened the case, revealing a collection of strangely shaped metal stars, thin wire, and several small ceramic containers. "I don't use bullets." 12 hours later, a silencer moved silently through the halls of Toronto's government complex. Its mission was simple: eliminate Minister Cho, who coordinated North American defense responses. The silencer's invisibility field bent light around its body, making it appear as nothing more than a slight distortion in the air. The creature moved with perfect confidence. 15 previous missions had been completed without complication. Human weapons were useless against its shield technology. Human eyes could barely detect its presence. The elimination would be quick and efficient. As always, far above Earth, aboard the Imperial Command vessel, Supreme Commander Nowonsik paced the bridge in barely controlled fury. The massive alien warrior's armor gleamed with rank insignia, and the implants at his temples pulsed with angry red light. "This primitive has killed 9 silencers," Nai raged to his subordinates. "9 of our elite assassins. How is this possible?" The tactical officer, sweating visibly, displayed holographic images of the fallen silencers. "Each was eliminated using different methods, Commander. The human seems to adapt to our technology with each encounter." Na slammed his fist onto the console, cracking its surface. "Find him. I want this human's head." "We're tracking his movements, sir," the officer replied. "But he's difficult to predict. He uses no technology we can trace, no communications, no weapons with energy signatures." Na narrowed his cap-like eyes. "Prepare my personal combat armor. I will handle this myself." Meanwhile, Jae-hyun crouched in the shadows of an air duct, watching Imperial soldiers patrol their hidden base. For 3 days, he had tracked unusual energy signatures to this location deep beneath the Gobi Desert. What he found exceeded his worst fears: a fully operational alien outpost. Moving silently, he made his way toward the central command room. The base was surprisingly large, with at least 50 Imperial personnel. Most were technicians rather than warriors, but Jae-hyun remained cautious. Even one silencer would be dangerous, and his intelligence suggested something worse had arrived. He reached an access panel above the main computer terminal. Below, 3 Imperial technicians worked at stations covered in strange symbols. Jae-hyun waited patiently until only one remained, then dropped silently from the ceiling. One quick strike with the handle of his blade, and the technician collapsed unconscious. Jae-hyun moved quickly to the computer terminal. Though he couldn't read the alien language, Director Ba had provided him with a small device that could copy the data for later analysis. As the device worked, images flashed across the screen: star maps, ship designs, and deployment schedules. Though he couldn't read the text, one thing became terrifyingly clear: the images showed hundreds of ships heading toward Earth. This wasn't just an assassination campaign. It was the advance team for a full invasion fleet. The data transfer completed with a soft peep, Jae-hyun pocketed the device and prepared to retreat the way he came. That's when he sensed, rather than heard, movement behind him. He threw himself sideways just as a molecular blade sliced through the air where he had been standing. The blade cut through the computer terminal like it was paper. Facing him was a tall Imperial warrior, unlike any he had encountered before. This was no standard silencer. The armor was more elaborate, the implants more extensive. The being's eyes glowed with unnatural light. "The troublesome human," the warrior said, voice distorted through his helmet. "I am Supreme Commander Nowonsik. Your interference ends now. Jae-hyun didn't waste breath responding. He threw 3 metal stars in quick succession, aiming for the weak points he had identified in silencer armor. Na deflected them with impossible speed. Your primitive weapons won't work on me. I study your techniques. The commander attacked with frightening speed and precision. Jae-hyun barely avoided the strikes, forced to retreat around the room. This was no ordinary opponent. Na's enhancements made him faster and stronger than the other silencers. Jae-hyun took a glancing blow to his side, the molecular blade slicing through his armor and into flesh. He felt warm blood flowing, but didn't allow himself to focus on the pain. Na pressed his advantage, driving Jae-hyun back. You've caused quite the problem. Human, the Emperor himself has taken notice. Jae-hyun ducked under a swing and rolled behind a console. He needed to change tactics. Frontal combat against this opponent would only end one way. The invasion fleet approaches, Na continued, stalking forward. Your planet will be pacified within weeks. Your efforts are meaningless. Jae-hyun reached into a pouch at his belt and removed a small ceramic container. Ancient techniques sometimes offered solutions where modern methods failed. As Na rounded the console, Jae-hyun threw the container at the commander's feet. It shattered, releasing a cloud of fine powder. Na's shield flickered as it attempted to block the non-threatening substance, but the microscopic particles slipped through the energy field. The commander laughed. Dust. This is your weapon. Jae-hyun struck then, his blade aiming not for Na's body, but for a specific point on his armor, the environmental regulator that processed air for the commander's helmet. The blade connected, damaging but not destroying the device. Na roared and slashed wildly, catching Jae-hyun across the chest with another shallow cut. Jae-hyun retreated, bleeding from multiple wounds now. Na pursued, seemingly unaffected by the powder. But Jae-hyun hadn't expected an immediate effect. The powder was coated with a neurotoxin derived from pufferfish, refined through techniques his family had perfected centuries ago. It would take time, but already Na's movements were fractionally slower. You fight. Without honor. Na gasped, the first signs of the toxin affecting his speech. Jae-hyun watched as the commander's steps became less certain. I fight to win, he replied simply before throwing a final smoke bomb and disappearing into the ventilation system. Behind him, he heard Na's enraged roar, followed by the sound of armored fists pounding metal in frustration. The commander would live. The toxin was designed to incapacitate, not kill, but he would be unable to pursue for several hours. Long enough for Jae-hyun to escape with the critical intelligence about the incoming invasion fleet. As he made his way through the dark tunnels, blood seeping from his wounds, Jae-hyun knew the nature of the conflict had changed. He had been hunting silencers. Now, the Empire's supreme commander would be hunting him. The stakes had never been higher.